Now, Castle Rogue is a traitor type game. It's similar to other games that maybe you've played before, like Among Us, Mafia, or Werewolf. The difference that we have in our game is that we play this game in real life, so it acts more like a live action role-playing game as opposed to a video game or a card game. The game is best played with about 6 to 16 players, and each game can take 15 to 30 minutes from start to finish. The game starts out with everybody drawing a secret card at the very beginning, and the card will say their roles. So there are 2 roles in the game. There are the rogues, and then there are civilians. So you grab your card and you take a look at it, and you keep this a secret and you don't show anyone else. The number of rogues you play with is dependent on the number of players you have. In a 6-player game, there's 1 rogue. With more players, there can be 2 rogues and even 3 rogues. Here's a table that explains how many rogues there should be depending on how many players you have. Now, before the game starts, the rogues need to reveal their identity to each other. To do this, have one player narrate to the whole party something like, "Everyone close your eyes. Keep your eyes closed. Rogues, open your eyes. Rogues, find each other." I give them a couple of seconds to do that. Then they say, "Rogues, close your eyes. Everyone open your eyes. Now, get to work." And at this point, the game will begin. During the game, the different roles have different jobs to try to do. The rogue's objective is to try to kill the other civilians, while the civilians are trying to do one of 2 things. They're either going to try to identify and eliminate the rogues, or they're going to try to complete their tasks. Now, tasks act as a secondary objective for the civilians, and they kind of act as a distraction, something for the civilians to focus on so that they have another way to win the game and kind of purposefully move about while they're playing. Tasks are essentially jobs that civilians have to complete, and for these tasks, you can create tasks that are imaginative, tasks that require props, or they could even be real tasks that need to be done. To indicate the tasks that civilians have to do, they start by drawing task cards. So we have 2 buckets. We have a bucket full of unfinished tasks and a bucket full of completed tasks. To start the game, everybody grabs 3 task cards, including the rogues too, so they can kind of blend in. The task cards define what it is the civilian needs to do, and you'll place the tasks in different places around your play area. So if you're playing in a house, maybe a specific room will have certain tasks, and all players should know what these tasks are and how to do them and where they're located before the game starts. One thing you can do to help everybody know where all the tasks are and what they are is draw a map. And put this map in the meeting room where everybody can access it, and they can look at it when they grab their task cards. Some of the tasks we created involve civilians pretending to cast a spell, or pretending to fight someone, or maybe completing some stretches. While you're completing your tasks, you should not be talking to anybody. You should be focused on the tasks that you are doing. Generally, a good rule is to face away from open areas so that you are distracted and really focused on completing your task as opposed to looking for rogues or suspicious activity. So at the beginning of the game, all tasks start out in one bowl and they're marked as uncompleted. In order for civilians to win, they have to complete a number of tasks equal to 3 times the total number of players in the game. After you've completed your 3 tasks, you can return your cards to where the task cards are located and place your completed ones in the completed bowl. Then you can grab up to 3 new tasks if there are that many available. When somebody thinks that the civilians have completed enough tasks to win the game, they actually have to sit there and count to figure out exactly how many tasks have been completed. If they've completed all the required number of tasks, they can shout "tasks complete," and then everybody else shouts "tasks complete" so that everybody knows that the game has ended and the civilians have won. Now, while the civilians are distracted and maybe completing their tasks, rogues are moving about and looking for opportunities to kill civilians without being caught. For the rogues to kill someone, we had fake weapons that we actually used and walked around with, and they would take their weapons and they would touch a civilian and they would whisper "dead." Alternatively, if you don't have fake weapons, you could just give a karate chop on those civilians and still whisper "dead." That way it's very clear if a rogue has killed you or not. And when a civilian dies, they can lay there and pretend to be dead. Alternatively, they could take their arms and cross them in front of their face to show that they're dead. When somebody finds a dead civilian, it could be a rogue or it could be another civilian, they're going to start shouting "Castle Rogue!" And if you hear somebody saying "Castle Rogue," you also are going to shout it too. At this point, everybody stops what they're doing and they come back to the meeting room where the game started. Additionally, you don't have to see a dead body, but if you see somebody that's acting suspicious, you could also call for a meeting by shouting "Castle Rogue." We made a rule, however, that you could only call for these additional meetings once per game per player. Now, to start a meeting, usually the person who called for the meeting starts out by explaining why they called for a meeting and what they were doing and what they saw. Anyone can talk during the meeting and start throwing accusations around. Ultimately, the civilians are trying to figure out who the rogues are, and the rogues are trying to pretend to be innocent civilians at this point. Once everybody has kind of come up with their decision on who they're going to vote for, they're going to take their finger and point it to the sky to indicate that they're ready to vote. When everybody's finger is pointed into the sky, somebody's going to say 3, 2, 1, vote. And everyone's going to point their fingers at who they think is the rogue or who they want to eliminate for this round. Alternatively, if you want to abstain from the vote, you can just point your finger to the ground. Now, while players are pointing their fingers, you're going to count the number of votes that each player has. The player with the most votes is eliminated. But if there's a tie, or most players have their fingers pointed to the ground, then nobody's eliminated. A player that has been eliminated will reveal their true role. If all the rogues have been eliminated, then the game is over and the civilians have won. If there are still any rogues left surviving in the game, the play continues and everybody disperses and continues about doing their tasks. Any player that's been eliminated or killed by a rogue has now become a ghost. Ghosts can continue to play, they can act as observers, or they can help the civilians continue to complete their tasks. Now, the one difference is ghosts cannot talk, is they know some information that the civilians do not. Now remember, the point of this game is to have fun. It's about rogues trying to be sneaky while the civilians are trying to figure out who those rogues are.